The Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Point system has been designed to be implemented in a little more than 12 steps. This video is the fifth of a series that simplifies them into 6 parts. Critical Control Points, or CCPs, may be one of the most studied elements of HACCP. Establishing them requires an understanding of the target hazard, the food material treated, and the technology. The HACCP method also gives CCPs most of the attention. 4 of the 7 principles are focused on CCPs. Let's summarize the details in a few ideas. The common method to determine if a control is a CCP is using a decision tree that helps sort out controls based on a series of questions. The answers to these questions can be displayed in a table. Before assigning a CCP, it may be useful to understand how food safety hazards are reduced. The ideal control will eliminate the hazard forever. This could be achieved by prohibiting or error-proofing. However, it is not always practically achievable. A chemical or biological reaction may be required to reduce the hazard when it is present in the food material or at one of the contributing causes. Scientists have tried to explain the removal of hazards using a series of advanced terms. These terms can be easily understood using a figure that illustrates hazard behavior throughout a process. The main idea is that authorities or customers should use a risk assessment to determine the maximum level of hazard allowed. The operator should determine the means to achieve these objectives. This requires implementing control measures that decrease the hazards to the levels demanded. In other words, a new step that modifies the food material or applies a new technology needs to be added. The author thinks a CCP could be determined just from their definition. CCPs are control measures applied to reduce or eliminate hazards to acceptable levels, and there will be no increases after. The control of CCPs requires critical limits, which can be determined from models that predict how a hazard reacts to changes in criteria. They can be increased to account for operational errors. Tools that predict the behavior of microbial hazards in specific foods under treatment are available freely online. The Pathogen Modeling Program and Combase are the most complete tools available. The next principle is about preparing a procedure that details what will be monitored, how it will be done, how often, and the operators responsible for this task. Monitoring records may be regulated. The HACCP team may have to evaluate several options to decide which one is more appropriate for the operation's capabilities. More about monitoring and records in the next video of this series. The 5th principle calls for establishing and documenting corrective actions for situations when the process is out of control. The HACCP team must find out if this is a regulatory requirement. Deviations below critical limits are a problem because of a significant amount of residual hazards. Deviations above can result in damages to the food material that results in new hazards. Understanding the process, its control, and statistical process control can make the prevention of problems easier. Assignable causes can be identified in advance to adjust the process on the go. An archive of knowledge can be built by identifying typical errors and fixes. This knowledge can be created using root cause analysis tools like FMEA. More about this in a later series of videos. The following literature was reviewed to prepare this content. Thank you for watching this video. The author will be happy to collaborate with projects related to these ideas. He can be found on most social media channels with these usernames.